game. Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Good morning to you. I know it's a little bit unconventional. Normally, I don't do shows this early. Normally kick off around 12 noon Eastern time, but got some things in the afternoon that I got to handle. So thought that it would be great to actually have an early morning show to talk to you a little bit about the Saints' Week 8 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. The New Orleans Saints getting it done, getting a much-needed win, and also instilling a little bit of confidence, back into the Who Dat Nation in the team. So, look, the win yesterday versus the Indianapolis Colts, I put a poll up, and I encourage everybody to check it out. It's on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can follow me at TJAYJones8. There's a poll that I put up, and I asked very, very simply, did the victory yesterday versus the Indianapolis Colts change your mind about the New Orleans Saints? Because I think it suffices, to say that, a lot of people feel a different type of way towards the New Orleans Saints today as they did leading into that game. And I think that a lot of Saints fans were impressed at what they saw, but there's a lot of other Saints fans out there that are kind of skeptical. They're like, they look good. They performed well. The offense looked impressive. The red zone issues, like they seem to absolve those, at least for this game. And, but at the same time, I'm kind of on the fence about what I saw. It's too much of a mixed bag when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. And you have a lot of Saints fans out there that are kind of upset. They're upset that they, because this is a really good football team. And they're wondering to themselves, why can't we see this every single week? Why can't we see this every single Sunday? Because this team is capable of putting forth this type of effort. And, I have opportunity to check out some of the Saints fans' tweets and comments, and you really have a mixed bag here. And this is one of those situations where it's like both things can be true. If you are a Saints fan and you feel like people need to get on board with the team, you're well within your rights to feel that way. And also, if you enjoyed the victory on yesterday, but you're still on the fence about the team, you're well within your rights to feel that way also. I mean, it's just that simple, because this team gives you so much hope. Like what you saw yesterday is one of the reasons why people just continue to believe in this team, because they see the talent, they see the ability, they see what this team could possibly be. I was impressed at what I saw yesterday when it comes to the Saints doing what is necessary to win football games. That was the most impressive thing to me. Not the fact that they put up 38 points, not the fact that, they had over 500 yards of total offense. It was the simple fact that they did what was necessary in order for them to win. And that includes even some of these players having to swallow their pride and, minimizing their ego. What I mean by that is when it comes to the red zone, Derek Carr historically throughout his career, as well as with the Saints, has struggled in the red zone. And what did the Saints do? They went to something that worked, which was Taysom Hill running the football in the red zone, and they found success by doing so. And I think that is a very, very smart idea. And it also gives me some level of hope that they possibly could do some of these things in order to help them. I can see Jimmy Graham, when he does come back from injury, him being a part of the red zone, like being a part of the red zone offense. I can see that because these are the things that you need to do in order for your team to be successful, in order for you to generate points. Look, whatever works, you need to do it. I like the fact that the Saints utilize Rashid Shaheed as their down the field threat because of his speed and his ability to be able to come down with the football. Rashid Shaheed had 3 receptions in this game. He had over 150 yards. He had a 51-yard average, which means that the New Orleans Saints were utilizing him because of his strength, be able to get take the top off the defense. That worked. Running the football with all 3 running backs. And also you can include Taysom Hill as well. The Saints were running the football, understanding that you are a running team. Like, honestly, like the Saints, they can throw the ball and they can help, but they have so many talented running backs. And this offensive line, they thrive when they're running the ball more so than when they're passing it. And if your running game is successful, then that sets up some of those big-time plays down the field. I like what I saw. If the Saints can continue to do this, then they can win a lot of games. They can get themselves out of this hole that they put themselves in. And by that, I mean they definitely put themselves in this situation. Because I think that one of the biggest issues was, just like us, we evaluated the schedule. We looked at the schedule. We looked at who the Saints played. We looked at the quarterbacks. We looked at the offensive situations, the defensive situations of the opposition. And we had this false sense of reality of what it actually was. And I think that the Saints kind of were coasting a little bit because they felt like they had the playoffs in the bag. They had the division in the bag. They started looking at the guy next to them in the locker room and said, we can't be beat. And I just think that they took their eye off the ball. I'm not a real big fan of Dennis Allen's post-game press conferences or some of his locker room speeches, but I will say this. Yesterday, I got opportunity to take a look at Dennis Allen's locker room speech. And he did something that he normally doesn't do when I'm watching him, and that's moved me. Like, I really felt that Dennis Allen was a leader at that particular moment because he told these guys what a lot of us felt, right? Don't just be satisfied with just this win, right? Let's start stacking wins. Let's start like holding ourselves accountable. I like what I saw from Alvin Kamara at the post-game press conference, basically saying, yeah, we won this game, now on to the next, on to Chicago. That's the mind frame that you have to have in order for you to generate levels of success. That is how you're going to get yourself out of this hole. That is how you're going to be able to build on this win versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I said yesterday on the State of the Saints podcast post-game show, this season can go 2 ways here. It can go 2 ways. This win could symbolize, the start of a possible run, because there's a possibility that can happen. I'll get into that in a few minutes. Or it can just be the same old song and dance that we're used to. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and that's a wrap, right? It just always seems to be that way, given the Who Dat Nation false hope. It can go 2 ways. Now, it's up to the New Orleans Saints in order for them to figure out what they want to do with that situation, because everything that you are working towards is right there in front of you. Right now, the New Orleans Saints, they hold their own destiny in their hands. And right now, it just seems like the football gods are being cruel to other teams, but are being favorable to the New Orleans Saints. Let me elaborate on that for a second. Around this time last year, we know that there were major injuries to skilled position players for the New Orleans Saints. Michael Thomas wasn't here at the time. Jarvis Landry wasn't here at the time. I think Juwan Johnson was dealing with an injury. You had Alvin Kamara dealing with a rib injury throughout the entire season. You had Chris Olave. I think he left the game due to a concussion, against the Seattle Seahawks around this time last year. You had all these different injuries to these skill positions and difference makers. But now that you look around, there aren't many injuries. Like you have guys that are a little bit nicked up, guys like the Mario Davis, guys like Andrews Pete. You know, you got some guys that are nicked up, but they're giving it the old college try and they're playing. The Saints have all of their skill players, guys that are difference makers that are still playing right now. But if you look around the landscape of the NFC South, you'll see that some of these players out here that are playing with some of the rival teams of the Saints are dealing with some significant injuries. Like if you've been following today, you know that star interior lineman Grady Jarrett has been lost for an entire season with an ACL tear with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have benched Desmond Ridder for poor play for Taylor Heineke. So they're trying to figure it out. Then you have the Carolina Panthers who finally won their first game, but they're still trying to figure out how to win with a rookie quarterback and a young team. And you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after they had their little victory over the New Orleans Saints have lost, 3 straight? So when you look at this NFC South, you have to say that if it's still favorable for the New Orleans Saints. And if the New Orleans Saints can figure it out, if they can find ways to generate success consistently, they can run away with this division. I didn't even mention that on yesterday, Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, tore his Achilles, so he's going to be out for the season. So you're going up against Jared Hall, who I like and I have a lot of respect for. To me, he's going to be a really good quarterback. But you're catching him at a time where he's probably going to be going into his second start. And then you have Tyson Bagent, who has some arm talent. I checked him out on Sunday Night Football versus the Chargers, but he still has to go through some growing pains. So you're catching a young Chicago Bears team that is still trying to figure it out, that is missing some pieces in order for them to be a legit contender. And you also have the Minnesota Vikings, who have been sputtering even with Kirk Cousins. So you don't have Kirk Cousins. You won't be playing with against Justin Jefferson. And you're going up against upon playing the Saints is going to be his second start. When you look at this schedule, the stars are all aligned for the New Orleans Saints. If the New Orleans Saints can get out of their own way, if they can just focus on the task at hand, which is taking it one game at a time and minimizing the mistakes, I think that you can find yourself in a position where you're running away with the division. But it's not going to be easy because we know that these teams, no matter how bad they may look one Sunday, they can muster up enough in order for them to get the victory. And, you know, the Saints for the last few years have not been world beaters at home. So even though the Chicago Bears on Sunday night versus the Chargers look like, you know, one of the worst teams in football, they still have an opportunity to win the football game versus New Orleans Saints. And the Saints cannot allow these guys to linger around and give them false hope. You got to go ahead and attack these guys early in the game and make sure you impose your will to leave very little doubt. And if they can do that, then by the bye week, the Saints can be 6-4, you know, sitting atop the division. So they have everything in front of them. And once again, it can go two ways. That victory versus the Indianapolis Colts could be what we've seen throughout the years, win one, lose one, or it can be something that catapults you to the front of the line and possibly run in the playoffs, right? Because we know the Saints have a good defense. And if this offense can continue to replicate what we've seen over the last 3 games, which is, you know, they've been averaging nearly 400 yards per game, then I think that this is the recipe for success, and you can find yourself winning the division and being a contender. Because look around the NFC, you're starting to see teams that were starting off white hot. They're starting to cool off a little bit, and not just in the NFC, but the AFC as well. I mean, the Buffalo Bills, they knocked off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they aren't looking like themselves. The Kansas City Chiefs are losing to the Denver Broncos. They're not looking like themselves. You look at the 49ers. I mean, they started off 5-0, they didn't drop 3 straight. Then you have the Philadelphia Eagles. They had to scratch, bite, and claw their way to a victory versus the Commanders, a Commanders team that's still trying to figure it out and wondering, do they have the right head coach? And you also have, you have teams like the Dallas Cowboys that dominate, but they're not world beaters either. They got dominated by the 49ers, the same team I said that lost 3 straight. So if you can find ways to get out of your own way, minimize the penalties, and continue to utilize some of these talented players and open up the playbook and build on some of the footage that you're going to watch, that you see some of these key guys making plays, I think that you can be one of the best teams, going forward. You can be one of the hottest teams in the game. We've seen this before. Like we've seen teams struggle when they first get together, and then all of a sudden they just go on this run. They can actually be that, but it's all up to the New Orleans Saints. What team are they going to put on the field on a consistent basis? People just want to see consistency. I know that you have Saints fans out there that are upset at other Saints fans because they're like, man, just take the victory for what it is. I can't work like that. And I'm pretty sure there are some Saints fans out there that won't either. Like, you can't do the Benson Boogie and be dancing all through the streets just because the Saints give you some glimmer of hope that their season is going to be salvaged. People want to see consistency. If this was one of those situations where you had a young quarterback and an inexperienced team and they were winning one, losing one, and they were trying to figure out how to win, I think that Saints fans' confidence in the team probably would be completely different. But what was advertised to us as onlookers, as fans, this was supposed to be a team that was one of the best in the NFC, and they haven't lived up to the expectations. So, of course, people are going to kind of approach this with fine gloves on when it comes to their support and just completely diving into the pool that is the New Orleans Saints. Like nobody wants to do that. Like you got to be very, very skeptical about this, especially since under Dennis Allen, we've seen that this team has been a mixed bag, no matter how talented they are. But, we'll see where this goes. I think what I saw, you could actually build on. And if they continue to do some of the things that they did in this game versus the Indianapolis Colts, then I think they should be fine. They had 10 days to come up with this game plan versus the Indianapolis Colts and also to be able to approach the game a little bit differently. I like the fact how the Saints attack the middle of the field, something they haven't done throughout this season. Don't know why, because you have some really, really talented guys that can do that and not afraid to go out there and make those tough catches. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to build on some of the things that make you successful. And I like the fact, once again, that the Saints went out there and they went with things that worked. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They didn't try to overguess themselves. If a guy is good at one particular thing or two things in particular, they used it. And the guys that were lacking and the guys that didn't give you the certain level of production in certain situations, they didn't give them the opportunity. And I like it. And if you continue to do that, I think you will be successful. But if you continue to try to worry about how people will feel about certain situations, I don't want to take them out of this formation. Nah, man, go with what works. If Derek Carr has some issues in the red zone and you have Taysom Hill that has a higher probability of scoring in the red zone, or hell, even if you want to use Jameis Winston from time to time in the red zone, go with what works. Make it work, and continue to build from that. And, it's not like one of those situations where, teams are going to find out that when Colin Sanders is in the game, they're going to run with Taysom Hill. Well, I mean, now that you've seen that the running game in the red zone with Taysom Hill works, continue to use that, but also be able to expand it a little bit. Give him an opportunity to throw the football. Because when teams are going to start selling out to that because it's going to – you're going to have a bunch of defensive players selling out to try to stop Taysom Hill. When Taysom Hill was in the game and they were running these plays, you looked at the Indianapolis Colts, defensive coordinator Gus Bradley was, calling cover zero, right? Which means man-to-man right across the board. So that opens up endless possibilities. Like I mentioned, when Jimmy Graham comes back, you can have Taysom Hill throwing a pass to Jimmy Graham or Michael Thomas or one of these other guys because the defense is selling out to stop him. So there's endless possibilities of how you can attack this. And I'm glad to see that this is working. And I also want to say this. I know that Colin Sanders being in a game, man, it was so exciting, just to see him out there, man. Just shows us the athlete that he is. But I'm telling you, I don't know when it's going to be, but one day the Saints are going to hand that ball off to him, and and people are going to lose their freaking minds. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be like they're going to give him the football one day. I'm telling you, it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks if they continue to run that formation. But they're gonna hand that ball off to him. It's probably not gonna be. It's probably gonna be like one of them games where the Saints probably are up, by a few points, and they'll probably do it, just to do it, but not in a crucial situation. But they're gonna hand him the football one day. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and we'll go from there. I'll start with keeping it real. Says they found their groove by increasing their tempo. Not a hurry-up offense, just a faster tempo and a simplified playbook. Look to have everyone on the same page. Miscommunication was not an issue. Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like they went back to the drawing board. I think those 10 days really helped them to be able to kind of, sit back and realize what works, what doesn't work, who can do what, and once again, this is one of those situations where you have to reinvent the wheel. Like, you have some really talented players that can do extraordinary things, and they have a really good skill set. And all you have to do is basically just kind of utilize that. And also, the Saints, they benefit from having guys that aren't just one-dimensional. So you can attack the middle of the field with Michael Thomas, but you also can attack the middle of the field with Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. And you can even send Chris Olave, for a quick slant, or Rashid Shaheed the same way. I think the biggest issue in years past was the Saints had one star guy at the wide receiver position that they called his number more times than not. And then you had a bunch of guys that had roles. They were like role players, right? You had your Devery Henderson that can take the top off the defense. Robert Meacham kind of fell in that same mold. You also used him in the wide receiver screens because of his speed. You had your third down back, that come in, they was going to run a screen. You had your guy that can run a quick slant. It was the same thing. Like teams were able to zero in on certain players because they had a certain skill set, and they know when the Saints brought them in the game, they knew what they were going to get. I think we remember that classic moment, the Saints on a Monday night versus Tampa. And you had Marquez Callaway that on the third down went on a quick slant, and Carlton Davis jumped in front of it, and he told him, he said, I knew you was going to do that, man. He said, every time you come in the game, that's what they call. So now you have a bunch of guys that can do different things, and that opens up the playbook. Now teams can't just say, okay, he's in the game for a quick slant, because now you have a player that can do a multitude of things, and you don't know how they're going to attack you. So by the Saints actually having players with extraordinary skill sets and that can do a multifaceted of things, it makes the offense look even more deadly if you use these guys correctly. And I just think that they went back to the drawing board and they saw that you have a bunch of players on this team that can do a lot of great things. So let's utilize them, and let's give our opponents hell, because we're going to use them the way that, that you're going to use them towards their strengths, instead of just forcing them to do something that makes them feel uncomfortable or they're not too sure about. If they can continue to keep the offense scoring like that, then they're absolutely a chance. Yeah, I mean, look, if the offense continues to thrive, we know the defense, is pretty good, and they're going to have games where, they look dominant. I don't look at this game versus the Indianapolis Colts and say something's wrong with the defense, because, look, based on the rules and how the NFL is set up in 2023, the fact that you actually have a defense that's solid, that can be able to pitch a shutout from time to time, that's a testament to how good they actually are. So when you look at this defense, they're not going to have many games like that. And also you have to take into account that Shane Steichen is a really good offensive mind. There's a reason why he became the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And there's a reason why Jalen Hurts was in the MVP conversation when he was his coordinator last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's I don't look at this game and be like, man, something's wrong with the defense. that's just a testament to how good Shane Steichen is as a play caller and the Indianapolis Colts for executing. And also you have to take into account that Gardner Minshew, who I have a lot of respect for, was out there, giving it his all. I mean, there was a couple plays where he extended, and it was just Gardner Minshew just making a play. Like the play that he threw a pass to Alec Ogletree in the back of the end zone. I mean, that was more of what Minshew is as a gamer than it was with the defense. All right. So I look at this defense having better games going forward. I just think that the offense of Indianapolis is much better. And, I think eventually they'll probably be a really good team once they get things together defensively. But it's probably going to take them a little while for them to be, that contender. Maybe next year when they can get another draft class under their belt and also be able to utilize some free agents on the defensive side of football. We can't lose to the Falcons under no circumstances, nor lose to Tampa again. I agree with that. You can't lose to either one of these teams. Definitely not with Tampa, because now you're starting to reach a point where you have to start winning games, because you lost to some NFC opponents. You lost to the Green Bay Packers. You lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, it's not so bad when you lose to the AFC teams, more so than losing to the NFC teams, because those are the teams that you need to beat, because if they beat you, then that means they jump in front of you when it comes to the playoff picture. So if you're like nip and tuck towards the end of the season and playoff implications are on the line, but you lost to a team that's fighting for their playoff life alongside with you, you'll find yourself, final game of the season, looking up at the big board, looking in you to catapult them. It's time for the Saints to start winning these games. They definitely got to beat the Chicago Bears, because this is an NFC opponent. You definitely have to beat the Green Bay Packers, because Minnesota Vikings, because that is an NFC opponent. You also have to look at the fact that Tampa at the beginning of the season beat Minnesota, right? And you also have to look at the fact, that these other teams have to play the Chicago Bears as well. Tampa, I believe, beat Chicago as well. So if you're like, if let's just say, for example, if Atlanta is winning the division and the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are nip and tuck for that 7th seed, so to speak, right? They will have the tiebreaker, right? Because even if y'all end up having the same record, because if you lose to Chicago and Tampa beat them, and you lose to Minnesota and Tampa beat them, then Tampa jumps in front of you. So you have to win these games. These are must-win games. Like these two games to me are bigger must-wins than the game against Indianapolis. I think the Indianapolis game, you had to win that to kind of instill the confidence back into the Who Dat Nation and also to yourself, because you needed a win. But these next two games, like, you got to approach these games like they're the playoffs. Because if you don't, then more than likely you're probably going to be on the outside looking in, and your season is going to be pretty much over. Because now you're going to be having to count on, Tampa to slip up and continue to lose, and Atlanta too. So you want to be able to win these games, approach these games like it's a playoff game, and we'll see, and see where the chip fall when it's all said and done. I'm gonna put the link down in the comments. If you want to talk about yesterday's game, I can take a few calls before we get up out of here. Talk a little bit about the game, or talk a little bit about the Saints, and are you confident in what you saw? Do you think that this can be a start of a run, or do you just feel like this is just another win to set us up for, another heartbreak the following week? Want to hear from you. TJ, I just don't like when we do good while main media doesn't talk about us. Well, honestly, I'm going to keep it 100. The Saints don't deserve to be talked about. Not right now, at least. Like, look, you got to give people a reason to sing your praises. And right now, I mean, the Saints don't deserve it. Like, I know they won yesterday, and that's cool, but the Saints don't deserve to be talked about in mainstream media because they've done nothing like besides disappoint. Like, you got to like, if they start peeling off win after win after win, then I feel like with that, then, you can get all excited and be happy and stuff like that. But right now, like, they don't deserve to be talked about by mainstream. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, because they've done nothing for us to be able to talk about. I'm not going to sit up here and be mad that the Saints aren't being talked about after, honestly, for the last couple of weeks, I didn't even really want to talk about them because of how bad they look. So why would I want mainstream media to sing their praises? Why? Because they beat a coach team that's trying to figure it out? Like, no. I mean, you got to give people a reason to talk about you. How about going on a run? How about winning games? How about making your offense more efficient and becoming one of the most dangerous teams in the National Football League? Then you can get talked about. But I'm okay with them not being mentioned because they've done nothing to be mentioned. You gotta win, man. You gotta win consistently. Like, I know people want to grandstand and hot dog when teams win, and you got people like, oh man, y'all been bashing Derek Carr. Like, man, look, you gotta win consistently. Like, I know some people take it any way they want, right? Oh man, you know what I'm saying? Like, they was talking about Derek Carr. I've been a Derek Carr fan. Now I'm really gonna let them know that, oh, y'all ain't talking now. Like, I'm still talking. Like, seriously, I'm still talking. I'm still questioning this football team. One win does not absolve the Saints, in my opinion. And quite honestly, that I feel like that's the issue with some fans. Like, that's the reason why the Saints can go out here and bring out anything and we just accept it, right? I mean, there's a standard that the Who Dat Nation should have. And if nobody is going to have it, I know I am. If the name of the game is consistency, my emotions don't waver about this team from week to week. And I don't think you should either, because that sets you up for success. I mean, for failure, rather. Like, come on, man. Like, you can't, nobody should build their emotions on a week-to-week basis. You can't. Like, do you do that in your relationship? Do you do that in your job? Right? Oh, we had a good week together. You know what I'm saying? Like, like that's cool with you? Or you want consistency? You want consistency in your life? You want consistency in your relationships? You want consistency? So I'm still talking. Like, yesterday did absolutely nothing to change my mind about this team. Because as a Saints fan, as a supporter, as a person that follows the team, guess what? I demand excellence on a consistent basis, to a point where, when we were winning games, I'm talking to Saints, when they were winning games, we were all excited about it. And we just pretty much felt like the Saints were going to win every game. And I would like to get back to that point. All right, we're going to go to Jerry. Jerry, how you doing, man? Jerry, can you hear me? I don't know if we lost Jerry. Let me make sure. Okay. All right, Jerry, we'll get back to you, man. We're going to go to Barnes. Barnes, how you doing? Can you hear me? Barnes, are you there? Yeah, I can.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right, man. What you got for us? Thanks for chiming in.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing, man? I just want to say shout out to the Who Dat Nation from all the states, representing from Florida. So,
okay,
you know what I'm saying? Shout out to the Who Dat Nation from all the states. But yeah, man, I agree with what you were saying, man. I need some consistency, man, to be honest. But
right
back then with the Saints, it was so much consistency. That wasn't the thing we was worried about. So
right.
Is it I don't know, man. It's got to be developed. Also, with the coaching, it got to be a level of consistency with the staff and with the players. It's all around, man. It's all around. I can't really get on the Saints fans like that because, I know most of them delusional. I mean, we lived in a world of delusion back then. So, it just takes consistency right now, man. It's a lot wrong with this team. I don't watch this team for years. So, and I'm only 27 years old. So, like you be saying, I be relating to what you when you be saying, like, I ain't never seen like the old Saints, so I can never relate to those people. I only seen Drew Brees. I only seen winning. You know what I'm saying? So I can admit that. I never was like somebody in the chat, that wasn't admitting that. I admit that, bro, because I never seen losing with this team. The only losing season I've seen is when Sean Payton. Well, that's when I first started watching football, when Sean Payton got suspended.
Right.
So that's when I first became a Saints fan, when the Super Bowl happened. So
Right.
when Sean Payton got suspended, that was the only losing season I really seen. And the offense was great that year. So it
Right.
wasn't really like the games was bad. You know what I
Right.
mean? Sorry
Mhm.
about the helicopter in there.
Nah,
But
it's cool, man.
yeah, man, I just think like you said, it takes a level of consistency. The boys got to big up, man. Like for real though, like we need it. Like we need these 2 games. These two games counts, man. Like
Right.
these are really playoff games because we go 4-6 going into the bye week and have to come out the bye week to play Atlanta, knowing damn well that when we come out of the bye week and we play Atlanta, we lose. So we need these 2 games. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's all I gotta say, TJ, man.
All right, Bonds. So, I appreciate the call. Make sure you call back anytime, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.
All right, no problem. Yeah, shouts out to Bonds. I mean, yeah, he making sense, and some of the things that he said, like that's one of the main reasons why, I'm very understanding when it comes to like certain Saints fans, because you do have a certain amount of Saints fans that only know the Saints for winning football games and being one of the best teams in the NFC, versus like someone like me. Like I was born in 1986, right? So most of the time, like growing up, I seen the Saints in the 90s when they weren't very good. And I kind of, was privileged enough to have an understanding about what this team once was and what they became. And, and also like what they are becoming based on, what we've been seeing over the last couple of years. So when you have a large enough sample size like that, your mind frame may be a little bit different than some of the younger Saints fans who, and it's not, and once again, I say this all the time, it's not your fault. Like it's almost like, like how I have conversations, with my grandparents. Like my grandparents, they grew up in rural Mississippi during the time of Jim Crow, right? Me, like I said, I was born in 1986. When they start talking about things like, for example, when we used to have to knock on, white people's door, we had to go to the back door. They'll get upset with you. And I'm like, I can't fathom that, right? Like, man, who are they? I got to knock on their door. You know what I'm saying? Or them having to wait in line for all the other white people to be served before African American be served. When you hear stuff like that, and I'm not trying to make this like a racial thing, but that's the times that they grew up in. And when they talk about that stuff, you're like, man, I couldn't deal with that. Well, yes, you could have, but the way your mind works is like you're looking at it from a modernized mindset, right? When you look at some of the Saints fans that are critical of the team and talking about, how terrible the team is, and like I can't believe what I'm seeing, it's because all they know is prosperity when it comes to the Saints. But a person like me, or a person that's probably like in their 40s, 50s, or what have you, they know how bad this team could be. They know when you look at this team and be like, hey, like, man, this team is terrible. Nah, I can tell you terrible, because they know how bad this team was at one particular time. I just think that it's funny that we don't realize that the reason why we have such a back and forth war when it comes to this team is because of the generational gap between seeing the Saints as a successful team, and you have a bunch of OGs out here that's seen them at their worst, and we're not realizing that the reason why we're having this conflict is because we have a different sense of what this team actually is and comparing it to like what we actually saw. That I feel like that's the biggest thing. It's a disconnect between the Who Dat Nation because of the knowledge that we have about this team and where they've been. And Drew Brees, or if you grew up with Wade Wilson as your quarterback, that's the conflict. Because we seen the Saints at certain eras, and we have an appreciation for, if you seen them stink, you have an appreciation for what they became. And if you never saw them stink and you seen them good, then you're frustrated because you never seen them at that particular point. Some of us seen the best of both worlds. Some of us have never experienced that. Thus the reason why we're so upset when the Saints lose. But let me go ahead and go to Jules. Jules, how you doing, man? Can you hear me? I think you're on mute, man. I think you're muted, man. All right. Hey, Jules, I'm gonna have to put you back on, man. I think you muted yourself. Okay, there you go.
Me?
Yeah, I can hear you
Can
now.
you hear me now?
Yeah, man, a little bit too early for a
Hey, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, man.
Hello? Hold on, let me hold on. Let me
All right. Hey, I'm gonna come back to you. Jules. Let's go to No Cap, No Filter. No Cap, how you doing, man?
What up, TJ? You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. What you got for us?
Yeah, man. That game right there reminded me of that Seahawks game last season, bro. Like Taysom and AK just had a good day, and as soon as they have a good day, that's when the defense just start giving up some points and giving up some yards and whatnot. But
Right.
The second half adjustments by DA was as usual on par. He always adjusting the second half, and all the stuff that was working the first half, it don't work no more. But I'm starting to get a little bit worried about our pass rush. Like I've been worried about not having no rotational players in Peyton Turner. But I'm also starting to worry about the run game. Like as of late, we've been giving up some running plays, but that is the Colts. So, you got to give them credit. Like they have a good running attack. So, maybe it was just them just having that good run attack. Now, I feel like when it comes to DA, I think, he'll have to show me before I put some more, money into witnessing the Saints. I could support the team, and I'm not a fair weather fan for, not wanting to go to the games, and I just support from the couch. I'll watch and support, but I'm not going buy me no tickets. I'm not traveling to the other side of town to watch the game at my favorite bar lounge, or traveling to another city to go watch them. I need to see this consistency first. I'm not about to just get real back in, like they say with the Godfather. I'm not about to get real back in, but I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to casual fans, they need to just let up on Marshall and Lattimore. Like, can I interest you in Corey White, Brandon Brown, Stanley Jean-Baptiste? Can I interest you in Fred Thomas? Can I interest you in Jason Kraft, Sterling Moore, Ken Crawley? Like, what we see from Marshall and Lattimore, you'll be very appreciative compared to the average cornerback going around in the rest of the entire league. Like they don't understand. Like when this dude give up a flag or give up a 10-yard first down, it's just all of a sudden, oh man, Marshall and Lattimore having a bad game. This dude been and gave up 40 yards from a receiver, and Marshall and Lattimore is having a bad game just for that. Like, man, bro, when it comes to a casual fan perspective of the cornerback position, bro, it's just some nasty work out there. But
yeah, I mean, it's just a false sense of reality that we have when it comes to cornerbacks. Like we just have this mind frame. Like when we look at cornerbacks, we expect them all to be Deion Sanders or Darrelle Revis or some of these other guys, But these wide receivers get paid a lot of money to catch that ball too. You know what I'm saying? And people just have to understand that. And also, it's just one of those situations, No Cap, and I'm pretty sure, man, you've been around long enough to understand that you don't really miss a good thing until it's gone. Like, you look at it like with Drew Brees towards the tail end of his career, people was like, man, he needs to go. Now it's like people wish they could have, those 15-yard passes from Drew Brees where he just nickel and diming it down the field because a cerebral approach was going to come with it, right? And I just think that it comes when Marshawn Lattimore, he's been around so long that I feel like sometimes Saints fans take him for granted. But if you look at back in 2016, then when they couldn't stop a nosebleed and you had Brandon Brown out there trying to stop Ted Ginn Jr. from catching touchdowns, I mean, it just changes like your perspective and you have an appreciation for Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore is the greatest cornerback the Saints ever had. Like, go back and look in history. I've watched some of the best cornerbacks the Saints had to offer. None of them are on the scale like Marshawn Lattimore. None of them would be able to game in, game out, neutralize the best wide receiver in the game. So anybody that's critical of him, like I do question their thought pattern when it comes to watching football. And I'm wondering, like, who are you comparing it to? Yeah, because I mean, everybody is not going to you're not going to be able to shut down every wide receiver every single week. Like, it's just not going to happen. There's going to be you want to have a higher percentage of you neutralizing those wide receivers, but there's going to be a time where that receiver probably has your number that day. But that's not an indication of you being trash. You got anything else, man?
A crazy thing, I think I just seen somebody was saying, yeah, man, if we would have just won that Packers game, we would have had the same records as the 49ers. I think how crazy that is. Just think about how crazy that is.
Yeah.
Another thing, I just want to say before I get up out of here, man, we thought we had the easiest schedule. This schedule just getting even easier. Like, we might play the Vikings without no Kirk, no Jettas. I just seen that Grady Jarrett out for the season.
Yep.
We know Justin Fields, which is our kryptonite when it comes to these mobile quarterbacks. It's just like, man, DA just got this served on a silver platter, and it's man, it just like it's like a gift and a curse, because it's a win-win situation if we win or lose. If we lose, cool. Better chance that DA just getting up out of here, and a new coach can come up in here, pick his quarterback, pick his coordinator, start his own regime, but you just have to sacrifice. Maybe he's taking a step back on the defense. But if we win, it's like we might get in the playoffs. If we do get in the playoffs, our only Super Bowl might be to knock off the Cowboys and then get bounced out the next round. But then they're gonna give DA another season. So it's like, is he gonna pick a quarterback? Is he's gonna look towards the future? Is he's gonna do the right things? Now, I give him credit on drafting. He could draft good, but he can't run it good after he drafted.
Right.
So I'm gonna let you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to say I appreciate you chiming in, man. Thank you so much. Make sure you call back anytime, man. I appreciate that.
All right, man. Cool. Get to the next caller, TJ. Do a good job.
I appreciate it, man. And shouts out to No Cap, No Filter. But yeah, I mean, look, I get all that, and I think that's a genuine concern that No Cap, No Filter brought up about if you start to go on a winning streak, then more than likely you're going to retain Dennis Allen, which, look, the name of the game is winning, right? Look, if it just so happened that the Saints just fall off a cliff and you just fire the guy, then it is what it is. But I want to see this team win. Like I said this yesterday on yesterday's episode, I'm not trying to see this team lose just so I can get this dude up out of here. At first, I felt that way, you know what I'm saying? Like when he was in his first season, because I just like, man, this ain't it. But if this means that the Saints go on a run and he stays around, then I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to see this team win. I want to see this team be successful. And we just have to understand that we have to have trust in this organization to make the best decisions. And I know it's been kind of questionable as of late about what the heck are they doing. Are they just trying to keep remnants of Sean Payton around? Or are they really trying to consistently win this thing? Do they really believe that by retaining some of the mainstays from Sean Payton is going to give this team continuous success in the future? Or, you know what I'm saying, are they just being delusional? But all in all, it's about winning. And right now, if you look at this division, if you look at the conference as a whole, if you look at it as a whole, like you see that you have a really good chance of not only winning your division, but having a deep run in the playoffs. Like, come on, man. We seen the 49ers lose to the Minnesota Vikings. Like the Minnesota Vikings, even with Kirk Cousins this season, have not been really good. I mean, we see the Philadelphia Eagles showing levels of vulnerability. I mean, the Cowboys, they looked outstanding yesterday against the Rams, but we all know Dak Prescott is a pick six waiting to happen in crucial situations. So it's not like, oh, all is lost. Like we never thought, like, and all of the losses that the New Orleans Saints have had this season, none of us actually felt like the team that they were playing against was better. It was more so that the Saints got in their own way and they lost. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. That is why we're at this position. That is why we have this I don't know approach, because not that the team isn't talented. We know the team is talented. That is the reason why we're upset, because they are talented. We can't change the narrative now. Oh, man, they ain't going to win. Like the Saints on paper and what we have been seeing on the field, like the promise that they've been showing, they can beat any team in the league if they are motivated and if they're dialed in. There's not a team out there I just feel like the Saints just can't beat. A lot of times, once again, after the games, we're mostly talking about how the Saints beat themselves. It's just that simple. It's never to a point where it just looks like, man, they had no business being on the field with this team. It's not like we talking about Georgia taking on Old Dominion or something. Like the Saints have just as much talent, if not more talent, than the teams they lost to. And that is the most frustrating thing about it. That is the reason why we're upset this season. Because if they didn't have that, why in the world would we be upset? If we didn't feel like they can beat some of the top teams in the league, why would we be upset? All right, so we're going to go to Jules. Jules, how you doing, man?
TJ, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, man. What you got for us?
Am I still on mute?
No, I can hear you, man.
Hold on me. Man, hey, congratulations on your victory yesterday, man. I got to eat crow. Hold on. Yeah, I got to eat crow today, man. Congrats. The Saints look good, man. I got the NFL Sunday ticket to watch all Saints games. Mm-hmm. And when y'all win, I give y'all credit, man. It's like whenever everyone's on the same page, we might be going somewhere. It's like November, but to November and go places, and like winning helps out everything, man. This is your show. You like to carry on with the show, man. Thanks for having me today.
No problem, Jules, man. Yeah. Look, the Baltimore Ravens look good as well, man. It seems like they got Lamar Jackson being more of a pocket passer, and I think that they're a talented football team, man. But the New Orleans Saints, they needed this victory badly, and I'm glad that they got it. So shouts out to Jules, man. That boy Jules got a lot going on over there, man. He vaping, he drinking Modelo. My goodness, man. What time it is? And it's like 9:47 Central. My man ready. That man ready for the day. That man living at 6 o'clock at 9:47. That man, it's 6 o'clock wherever he at right now. I'll tell you that. Oh, we gonna go to Jerry.
Hey, look like Jules living the high life, TJ.
Hey man, I'm looking. I'm trying to see what time it is, man, because clearly at the same time I'm on with Jules. But shouts out to Jules, man. I love that.
Hey, I know he's feeling good since his Ravens are doing good.
Oh man, absolutely, man. Like I mentioned, Lamar Jackson looking like a different quarterback, and we all know what he can do with his legs, but he's doing it with his arm right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But Jerry, all in all, man, Saints got the victory yesterday. I know.
Yes.
I seen your comments. I know you yesterday. Shouts out to you, man. I know you was at the church doing the Lord's work. But
amen.
But today, 30. The Saints get 38 points, 500 total yards of offense. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the game, man? Did it change your perspective about where you see this team going this season?
Well, TJ, after what I saw yesterday, the offense looked real good out there. They finally woke up. We've been talking for weeks about how bad this offense is looking with Derek Carr as quarterback and this offensive line and running backs and everything.
Right.
But after what I saw Sunday, when Derek Carr threw that long pass to Rashid Shaheed, mm-hmm. I already know it was going to be I already know it was going to be 6 on the board.
Right.
When I saw that, I'm like, oh my God. I was excited, TJ. The offense, they did their work. And also the defense, they did their part. Shout out to Paulson and Debo for that pick. Mm-hmm. So everything just went well on Sunday. We all talked about it for weeks, and I'm just happy we got the dub on yesterday. And finally, they had to wait 10 days after they played Jacksonville to finally wake up and play.
Yeah. Look, it was a great performance, all in all across the board. Right. I think it symbolized, that this team could possibly be something. But at the same time, like I mentioned, it's about consistency. We know what this team can be, and that's been the most frustrating thing as a fan, that you actually know what this team can be, and they haven't been living up to the expectations. But yesterday we saw flashes of that. And it's a good thing to see. And if they play that way, then I think that, they're going to be hard to beat. And I also, Jerry, I know that some people were talking about, the Saints giving up some big runs, for the last couple of weeks. But here's the reality, man. They played against 3 teams that are known for having a really solid running game. The Houston Texans have a really good offensive line. And the Saints actually end up playing that offensive line. That was the first time that offensive line was together. And they were already been talked about as being one of the top offensive lines in the Houston Texans. And then if you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, look what Travis Etienne is doing this season. Like, he's quietly having like one of the best seasons for a running back. And then you go into a game with Jonathan Taylor, who is running with relatively fresh legs because he's only been back for a few weeks. And then you have Zach Moss, who is second in all-purpose yards to only Christian McCaffrey. I mean, so that was murderous row. So sometimes, like, when you look at it, like, man, what's going on with the defense? They just went up against some really good teams.
They have.
Yeah.
They have. And looking at Jonathan Taylor, I mean, I remember what he did in college when he was up at Wisconsin. So he was a up and down running back going up and down going down the field. I mean, we know what he could do, especially when he played in the snow. That's when he got loose.
Yep. I mean, he's always been a good running back, and I think we all knew that he was going to be a good running back. And like I mentioned, I mean, the Indianapolis Colts have a really good offensive line. Like, the main person on that offensive line everybody knows is Quentin Nelson, because he's like the best guard in football. But they have a really solid offensive line, man, and they don't really get that much credit. But when you start looking at guys dominating in a running game, you have to give the big boys up front that type of credit, because there's no way in the world they're going to be able to generate those type of yards. I'm talking to running backs if they don't have a really good offensive line. So I don't want people to look at this defensive line and just be like, man, what's going on with them? They just went up against some really good offensive lines for other teams, and that may have been like one of the issues. I don't feel like there's an issue. Now, next week, I'm looking at when they face the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, too, have a really good offensive line. Now, you know what I'm saying? Like, even the game last night versus the Chargers, I mean, Tyson Bagent is just young and inexperienced. He didn't lose because the Chargers was, like, generating some type of pass rush. I only think maybe Joey Bosa was the only one that, like, got a sack. For the most part, it was the secondary of the Chargers that was neutralizing Tyson Bagent. I mean, the offensive line was keeping them upright. So I think next week versus the Chicago Bears, if the Saints don't generate a level of pass rush, I'm still not concerned, because they have gone up against some teams that have some really good offensive linemen, man. You got anything else, Jerry?
Yeah, I do have one more thing, TJ, and I'm gonna get out of here. What are your thoughts on? I know we all know about what Taysom Hill can do. We already know about that. He play every position. I get it.
Right.
But I saw something entirely new on Sunday in that offense.
Right.
What you think about Kalen? Not only Kalen Saunders playing defense, but what you think about him playing fullback?
I think that it's a good idea, but I don't think that you need to like continuously like just completely up his load. I think that what they're doing, just having him in goal line situations in the red zone, I think that is beneficial. When you have a guy that athletic and can do all those different things, I think you utilize him. And that's the thing, Jerry, what I mentioned at the beginning of the show when I said that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. When guys have a certain skill set and they're talented and they can do certain things, utilize that strength. I think what the Saints have been going wrong is they've been trying to be too exotic and making guys do things that probably not in their wheelhouse. What I've seen against the Indianapolis Colts is if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of approach. And you also see that they were utilizing guys for their strengths. Like you start to see Michael Thomas more so and work the middle of the field. You've seen Rashid Shaheed taking the top off the defense. You've seen with Chris Olave was more like those deep posts and shallow crosses and what have you. So they're utilizing these guys in a way that benefits them. So using Colin Sanders in that role, I think that it's a plus. But I don't think that you need to overexpose that because you don't have to. all you have to do is just make sure that you're actually utilizing your offensive players in a way that makes them feel comfortable, and also being able to use them in more explosive ways. I honestly feel like having Colin Sanders as fullback is a little bit of a luxury because you have so many other guys that can do so many different things.
Right.
Yeah. But Jerry, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much for chiming in, and enjoy the rest of your day, man. Call back anytime.
Hey, I will do. You do the same, TJ. Hey, it's Victory Monday. It's off to a good start to start the week. Hey, let's keep this. Let's keep it going. Who that?
Yeah, absolutely. Who that, man? Have a good day, man.
You too, my brother.
All right. Yeah. Shouts out to Jerry, man. Yeah, it's Victory Monday. Definitely more positive spirits in the Who Dat Nation than it has been over the last few weeks, I should say. But it's good to get a victory, and hopefully the Saints can build on that. We can go ahead and finish up the calls here. We're gonna go to Cool Sports. Cool Sports, how you doing, man?
What's going on, TJ? I'm doing all right. How you doing, man?
And also just want to thank you for your support of the show, man. That really means a lot to me. Thank you, man.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Yeah, I'm one of them old Saints fans like you. I was born in 1980, so I remember them bad days, them Mike Dicker, Jim Moore days.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
those weren't good days, man. Like, but it also gives you an appreciation of what you're seeing now, and it also makes you kind of limit your level of panic because you've seen the Saints at their worst, right? So
exactly. And I was telling people when a lot of people wanted Drew Brees to go. I said, y'all don't be so quick to get rid of Drew Brees,
right?
I was saying because they probably that's probably just some of them younger fans that ain't used to the losing days. You know what I'm saying,
right?
Because Drew Brees don't grow on trees. You know, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I definitely agree. I mean, but that goes to having an appreciation because you have something to compare it to. When you have a younger fan base that only saw Drew Brees at his peak, you don't have anything really to compare it to. You're basically comparing him to Jameis, Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, like Ian Book. But we seen like when the Saints tried to instill hope by telling us that Wade Wilson is the answer, a Billy Joe Hobart, a Billy Joe Tolliver, only to be left in disappointment. So I just think that sometimes, when you have that type of experience, you can kind of look at things in a certain way. And it's good to actually have something to compare it to, but it's also teaches you not to panic about every little thing. But what do you think about the game yesterday, man?
Man, I'm happy we got the win, but I'm still not so especially on DA.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like mixed feelings because I want us to win, but then if we win, that means DA probably gonna stay, just like some of the other calls were saying. But I mean, you still see some of those conservative tendencies and some of those scary tendencies that you be talking about, like on that 3rd and 18. Like, why not blitz? I was saying, why you not gonna send a blitz on a 3rd and 18? Like, he just had everybody drop back. Like, to me, that's a situation where you should blitz on a 3rd and 18. But that's just my opinion. But
right, yeah. I mean, look, I think that I look at this team. Like I said, they got a lot of promise. I seen yesterday what this team can actually be. When I look at this defense, like I said, man, I mean, they were able to neutralize the Colts when it was necessary. And then in the second half, you really didn't see too many big plays. A lot of what the Colts did was early in the game. I'm also impressed by the fact that, let's just be real, when the Saints were down 17-7, I think a lot of us probably thought, man, it's over because this offense isn't going to be able to keep up with the offense of the Colts, and it's going to be a tough day. But they show resolve, and they show that, they can put up points and be able to erase a deficit. So there was some positive things that I saw in the game. I'm not so much like, I feel like what the Saints did defensively wasn't bad. I just think that the offense of the Colts is really good. And I think that because last week they played against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns have the #1 defense in football, so they put up almost 40 points against them. So if you're going to put up 40 points against the number one team, of course, you know what I'm saying, you're going to put up some points against the Saints, who are a top 10 defense, but, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then some people got to understand the defense not going to shut everybody down there every week.
Yep.
I mean, it's you got, like you said, they get paid too. They get paid to catch balls and put points on the board. So they're not going to be able to hold everybody under 20 points every week.
Yep.
And I guess I got to give Derek Carr credit too, because he balled out. I'm saying, but he wasn't my first choice for our number one QB this offseason. On the slick, I kind of wish that the Ravens didn't work things out with Lamar Jackson. I thought that Lamar Jackson would look good in the black and gold, but Derek Carr I thought he would at least be better than Andy Dalton. But so far it's been about what went on that. But I got to give him credit this week because he balled out this week.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him credit. You know, I don't take pride in talking about Derek Carr like that, but I mean, you got to be real. Like, this guy was given 4 years, $150 million, $100 million guarantee, because we were told that he was supposed to be better than Andy Dalton, better than Jameis Winston, and he has not been more times than not. I mean, but once again, like, he can go out here and he can perform like this, and if he can do this on a consistent basis, he can give the New Orleans Saints fans something to believe in. I don't mind eating crow when it comes to Derek Carr. If he can change my mind about what I'm seeing, if he can consistently go out here and play well, I will gladly give him his props. Like, I don't buy into that whole social media thing where I just got to be right all the time. Like, I just don't. Like, if it means me looking bad and my team looking good, I'm good with it, right? But in the meantime, I'm not going to sugarcoat and hold back any punches when criticism is well deserved at what we're actually seeing. He was supposed to live up to those expectations, and more times than not, he hasn't. But in the game this weekend, he definitely lived up to it, and hopefully they can build on that.
Yeah, I agree. And then with the talent we have, I'm saying a lot of times you can win in spite of the coaching with the talent we have.
Yeah,
I think that's what happens sometimes too. That we win in spite of what the coaches do.
Right. Yeah. I think when you look at what the Saints actually have, they have the talent in order for them to rise above coaching in certain areas, but you also need the coaches to put you in the right place, because when you're on the field, man, you're only going by what the coaches are telling you to do. You have the eye in the sky, the coaches that sit up in the press box that can see down on the field and see how the defense is attacking you. That's the reason why when you go into halftime, you're able to make those adjustments. Players don't really see it that way. Now, if you a bench warmer, you can probably see what's going on, and you can probably instill a little bit of wisdom to the guys that's playing. But you need coaches to be able to put you in the best position to succeed, because you're not going to be able to see every single thing. But yeah, when you got veterans that have seen the game in so many different ways and the game is slowed down for them, you probably can overcome it. But you're not going to be able to do that every single week. You still need the coaches to be able to come up with a game plan to how you can attack your opposition.
Right, you ain't gonna win no Super Bowl.
No, absolutely
go deep
not.
into the playoffs with bad coaching. You're right.
No, it's like with Drew Brees, right? Like, I can't remember who it was, but they called earlier. I apologize. I want to say it was Barnes, and he was talking about how he was a Saints fan during the Sean Payton era, and he became a Saints fan during the Bounty Gate, right? The Saints had a really good high-powered offense, and it's probably because Drew Brees was the quarterback. But if you think about, Joe Vitt being a head coach and all these other guys, Aaron Cromer, like these dudes were, like inexperienced, but you were able to rise above it. And Drew Brees was able to put up some numbers because of who he was, but they didn't make the playoffs, right? Because they still needed coaching in certain games in order for them to get over the hump, and they just couldn't. When Drew Brees was hot, they won. When Drew Brees got neutralized more times than not, they lost. So you still need coaches to be able to put you in the right position to succeed. You can overcome it maybe a few games, but you still need the coaches to be able to make those adjustments and help you see the field.
Right. Eventually, it's gonna cost you. Yeah.
Yep. Pretty much, man. You got anything else?
No, that was it. That was it. Appreciate the show.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for chiming in. And call back anytime, man.
For sure.
All right. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Cool Sports. Real supporter of the show, man. It's good to actually have a conversation with him, man. Call back anytime. I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, look, sometimes you can rise above the situation, but you're not going to be able to do it consistently. Like you need somebody to be able to help you see certain things, right? There's always going to be like different areas that a player may be able to see, but there's also going to be something that in tough times where a defense is probably attacking offensive player a certain way, you need a coach to be able to let them know what they're seeing in order to help that player be able to live up to that potential and win that matchup. So you're not gonna win games like that all the time. Like you'll probably be able to make a play or two. Like for example, yesterday, Derek Carr had a conversation with Rashid Shaheed, and he basically told Rashid Shaheed when he sees the defense called quarters, just run. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and he gonna find you, right? So by having that conversation, it helped Rashid Shaheed to be able to go over 150 yards on 3 catches, right? So you have those times where you have an experienced quarterback or experienced player that can be able to see the field or be able to tell you something that, that can be to your advantage. But there's also going to come a time where he's not going to have the answers more times than not, and you're going to need that coach to see that for you. So it worked. It worked against Indy. Maybe it won't work against Chicago, but you need those coaches to be able to instill that inside of you in order for you to be able to win those matchups and find success more times than not. That's why the coaches get paid. Tim, thank you very much for the $5. Says up, TJ. I think we found something in that Colin Sanders goal line power. We can get so creative with the play, especially with Jimmy. Yeah, I mentioned that, and thank you, Tim. I appreciate the $5 donation. But yeah, I mentioned that. I said once Jimmy Graham comes back off injury, then that can be a really good advantage for you. The fact that you can actually utilize him, because Taysom Hill, what makes Taysom Hill so dynamic is the fact that not only will he run the football and find success there, but we've seen that he can throw the ball down the field to a guy like Rashid Shaheed, even though I must say this. I mean, that was a better play by Shaheed than it was a pass by Taysom Hill, right? But I digress. I mean, but the fact is, Taysom Hill has the ability to do that. So teams have to respect that. So you can't just say, okay, well, they got Colin Sanders in the game. No, they're going to run the football. I mean, Taysom can drop back and throw the ball. And guess what? Because you have all these defenders selling out to Taysom Hill, thinking he's going to run, that means that those wide receivers or tight ends are going to be wide open. So finding success doing that package with Colin Sanders will benefit the New Orleans Saints, because it's almost like with Philadelphia with the tush push, right? I mean, it's coming, but you can't stop it. If the Saints continue to utilize Colin Sanders and Taysom Hill like that, then they can open up that playbook, and you can have Taysom throwing the ball sometimes. You can have them running sometimes, and it's going to confuse the defense. So I definitely feel like they need to utilize that. And there's a lot of, as they say, a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to that formation. There's endless possibilities, because we've seen that there's a higher probability of that play being successful. So teams are going to look at that. They're going to try to prepare for it. And when they prepare for it and sell out to the run, guess what? That's when you get Taysom Hill throwing the football to Colin Sanders, or throwing the football to Michael Thomas, or whoever's open. That play can be really, really effective in the red zone, and you'll find yourself from being 36% in the red zone to 40 and 50. And that's what the Saints want to be. They want a higher percentage in the red zone. And those plays like that help you reach your goal. Hey, TJ, I tuned in after you posted the last show. I got a bone to pick with people trying to police other platforms. Keep doing you, homie. Let's see. Those who are supposed to be here aren't going anywhere. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, yesterday, very unconventional. And I do apologize. I try to keep it PG here on the show, but it just kind of frustrates me sometimes when you put so much passion into what you're actually doing, and then you just have people that I don't know, for reasons. I don't know if they're just not happy with their own life, or They just see how, you try to instill happiness in other people, or people instill happiness in you. And, sometimes they, I don't know, they just try to crash the party. And I just feel like anybody that knows or sees me doing this podcast, like they know that, I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And, when people like just kind of question that, I take offense to that. But regardless, that was very, unconventional. And I apologize once again for those that check that out. Because like I said, I try to make it as PG as possible here and give people a show they can enjoy. But there's only so much you can take. Lady T says, what's the difference between this show and your other show, TJ? Well, I guess when it comes to the State of the Saints podcast, of course, it's about, the New Orleans Saints, of course. And, there's a passion level of that because, I was born and raised in New Orleans. I grew up a Saints fan. And, I try to put that love out there every time I do a podcast versus like other shows that I do, Gumbo Pie Sports. I just talk about like other NFL teams. Mostly I've been covering like Coastal Carolina under that. I'm probably going to expand since I live in South Carolina, probably expand that out to more South Carolina teams, following the NFL and other things. As far as like the other shows that I'm doing, Therapy Couch I kind of put on hold because of all the other things that I have going between the radio station, covering Coastal and doing this show. But probably when the season ends and I have more time, that's when I'll start to like, do other shows. Like Therapy Couch is more of a personalized show where people kind of see another side of me. And I kind of more open about some of the things that I deal with when it comes to like mental health and, and also just things in life. So I just try to I try to do different shows and open myself up to let people know like there are different sides of me, and there's different things that I care about, things that I value. So when it comes to like this show, I value the Saints and I like to talk about it. When it talks about some of those outside ventures, most of the time it's just me talking about me as a husband, a father, and just everyday life. And I enjoy doing those shows, but I had to put those on hold while the NFL season and college football season is going on. Let's see. I like when TJ flash on y'all. Well, I don't like flashing on anybody. You know what I'm saying? I don't like going in on anybody. But sometimes you gotta let people know, man. You ain't with the bull, because one thing I take offense to is when people just feel like I just do this for nefarious reasons. Number one. Number two, when people just think that I'm just this character, I'm definitely not. I'm not a character at all. TJ Jones is not a character. That's just not me, right? It's kind of me just with the volume turned up. But I don't sit up here and just say, how can I make the Who Dat Nation mad today? Let me talk about Derek Carr and let me big up Jameis Winston. Like, no, like I don't work like that. And I think a lot of people like follow me on Twitter and they just don't know that I do a podcast, and they just think that I'm just talking just to talk, or I'm just trying to get attention to myself. That's not the case, right? I created this show back in 2018 for those that don't know, because I love this team. But I also feel like it's my responsibility to let you know where I feel like things are alarming when it comes to this team. And some people may not agree with that, and that's fine. Look, I'm not one of those people that's like, listen to me, I'm going to tell you what you say don't matter. That's just not me. And I don't feel like anybody should do that. I feel like we all should learn from each other. If you make a compelling argument and it's probably different from how I feel, like I might end up agreeing with you. I feel like you should always be open and you shouldn't just be steadfast on your opinion. That's not the true definition of dialogue, right? When you have dialogue with one another, you should leave the conversation better than you left it. Now, you might agree to disagree when it's all said and done, but you still should be able to open yourself up to, a different perspective. And I think if you do that, I think that, things will be better. Like sometimes you may not agree, but always have respect for other person's opinions. Let's see. DA hasn't been a legit Super Bowl contender that was healthy in all three phases of the game. Yeah, I mean, look, he definitely has something to prove, but let's see where this goes. I mean, we'll see. You know, the Saints won yesterday. Hopefully this can be a start of a winning streak and not what we've been seeing, which is a win one, lose one. But we'll see. TJ, I say we add a jet sweep option to that Taysom Saunders formation with either Olave or Shaheed coming in motion. Rather, Taysom keeps it, throws it, or gives it to them. What say you? Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, King Arthur, there are endless possibilities of what that play can actually be. Like I feel like it was the first installment. You're seeing that it works, and now you can kind of open it up a little bit, right? And have him doing the jet sweep, like you said, with some of those players with speed. Yeah, I mean, find ways to be able to make that play a little bit, bigger and more of a threat. I mean, you already found the first wave of it is successful, so let's open it up. Let's see. When TJ got mad at that random comment from yesterday, I cheered as a brother and as a fellow Tim. Kiss my, you know what? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was upset, and I felt bad because my grandparents was actually watching the show, and I didn't want to, have them listening to that. But at the same time, man, sometimes you gotta let people know, man, you ain't with the bull. And I just feel like sometimes, you just gotta let people know. You gotta let people know, man, you ain't about that nonsense. And that's what I did yesterday. But I apologize because that's not the type of energy that I want to. TJ, who gets the Bayou Baller Trophy, the best performer of last game? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that that it was Rashid Shaheed. Anytime that you have a 51-yard average in receiving and 150 yards on 3 catches, I think that you need to go ahead and give it to him. Look, Rashid Shaheed, I've been saying this, and I'm going to continue to say it. He's not just a good returner. He's not just somebody that just in this rotation. He's a difference maker. He's a guy with the capability of being a number 1 receiver. And because the way that he approaches the game, like one thing I love about Rashid Shaheed is like in the midst of everybody in the turmoil that was going on with the Saints offensively, yelling on the sidelines, who's responsible, this, that, and the third, Rashid Shaheed always plays the game, and it just makes you feel good. This game with like a childlike energy. Like when you see him, like he plays as if, man, I'm supposed to be here and I can't believe I'm having this opportunity. Like you see it in his eyes. Like when he's on the sideline, you see it in his play. And it makes you want to root for a guy like this. And I just hope that he keeps that same type of energy throughout his career, because if he does, then he'll probably be one of the most celebrated New Orleans Saints of all time because of his talent, what he possesses, his speed. And like I said, I just enjoy watching him play, because it seems like even when the offense was, questionable, like it still looked like Rashid Shaheed was having fun. He still was like, he was the spark. Like he's like, if I can keep it 100 for those that seen the movie You Got Served, he's like the little saint of the New Orleans Saints, right? He's like the guy that everybody just kind of look to and be like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like the kid that has the energy that everybody like looks at and be like, man, okay, little guy. That's kind of like how he plays the game. And like I said, I have an appreciation for that. He brings that spark that the Saints need. And I just hope that he keeps that level of energy, because you're an undrafted guy. You come into the game, very little experience, don't really supposed to be there. So you basically playing with house money. And you go out there and you outperform the expectations that is bestowed upon you. So like I said, I enjoy watching Rashid Shaheed play. Like he's a really good player. We'll go to Louisiana Stepper. How you doing, man?
What's up, TJ?
All right. What you got for us, man?
Man, good morning to you down there in Myrtle Beach.
Man, good morning to you too, man. What you thought about the game yesterday?
I just feel like we don't have consistency, man. One week we do good, the next week, man, we probably lay an egg next week.
Right.
But as far as yesterday, Derek Carr, like you said, I'm gonna give him his props because he did good yesterday. He finally found the end zone a couple times. Rashid Shaheed, he should be more a part of our offense, like every Sunday, not just on kick return. You know what I'm saying? I feel like instead of everybody talking about Olave, put Rashid up in there at number 2. Since Olave can't get it right, put him in the slot. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we need all 3 of them on the field at the same time to open stuff up, man.
Right.
That'll be legit. You got 3 good wide receivers. You got AK back there. You know he gonna do his thing every week. As far as like the defense yesterday, I feel like they played all right. They gave up some points yesterday too, but as a whole team, I think we did pretty good yesterday.
Yeah, I think so, man. You know, I was gonna get into it like a little bit later as we end the show about Rashid Shaheed. I mean, not Rashid Shaheed, but Chris Olave and what I think about that. But look, I still feel like there's still opportunity for Chris Olave. But Rashid Shaheed, I definitely agree with you. They need to open up the playbook when it comes to his production. And I mentioned this like a few shows back when Alvin Kamara first came to the Saints, Stepper, and you know, Sean Payton came to the podium. He was like, the reason why people aren't seeing how special Alvin Kamara is because of me. And then the next week, they utilized him against the Detroit Lions, and the rest is history. Now, you know, like we see Alvin Kamara and who he is. I feel like the Saints need to do the same thing. I feel like they're holding Rashid Shaheed back. Like he's much bigger than just a down the field threat, taking the top off the defense. And I hope that the Saints don't turn him into a one-dimensional player, because not only can he take the top off the defense, but he's a solid enough route runner to give you consistent production. He doesn't drop passes very often, man. I mean, even like when he like, there's not a time, and maybe this is this delusion for me, but there's not a time where I just feel like when he's receiving a punt that he's ever gonna muff it. Like this is the way he catches the ball. Like he catches the ball and punts in like different ways. It's almost like he's catching a football like somebody throwing a pass down the field, and that's kind of hard to do, man, when that ball is in the air for like 4 and 5 seconds. But I feel like the Saints need to give him a little bit more responsibilities offensively. I think he's gonna knock it out the park because every time he touches the ball, something magical happens, man.
Yep, TJ, he a special player, man. I don't know why they ain't been utilizing him the whole. I'm pretty sure if they been using him like they did yesterday, we wouldn't be what we is 3-3 or something like that.
Yeah. But honestly, I can understand why. You know, I can understand why they didn't use him, Stepper, because number one, when you have a wide receiver like Chris Olave with the expectations, what you saw in year 1 going into year 2, you expect for him to be that top guy. And then you have Michael Thomas, what you've seen throughout the years, him coming back, him being relatively healthy. You know what you were going to get from him. So I can understand why the New Orleans Saints probably had that approach like, okay, we can use Shaheed in little spurts because you thought that you were going to get more out of Olave and more out of Thomas. But now you're seeing that when you give him the opportunities, the few opportunities that you give him, he takes advantage of it. Like he makes big plays. Like you got to think about this, Stepper. He touched the ball only 3 times yesterday, and all 3 times it was a difference. He made a difference. So he's taking advantage of his opportunities. So if you put more on his plate, imagine how explosive he can actually be as an offensive weapon. Like you learn from the mistakes and you correct them. That's what got the Saints to victory yesterday. So if they continue to work and do what they did yesterday to help them find success offensively, then they can be more dominant. And it starts with adding more to Shaheed's plate because he's proven that every time you give him opportunity, he knocks it out the park. So why not give him more touches?
Yep. TJ, I feel like every time he touched the ball, man, it's going for a touchdown. Yep. I just feel that way, man. Every time he get the ball, just like you said, man, something explosive always happen, bro, no matter what the situation is.
Yep.
Punt return, down the field, misdirection in the backfield, man. Like he one of the coldest people on the Saints, man, straight up.
Yeah, and then on top of that, even when plays tend to be a disaster, like they can, like that pass that Taysom Hill threw to him could have been a disaster, but he made a play. Like he had to come back to the football. He caught the pass, And, like he kind of bailed out Taysom Hill. And then a couple weeks ago, it was the same pass, but on the opposite side. Derek Carr threw him a pass that kind of was similar to that of a Taysom Hill pass yesterday, and he caught that, right? I mean, he jumped over, he caught the pass over the defender's head. So, like I said, he takes advantage of those opportunities. When you see a guy doing stuff like that, I guarantee you, that is a quarterback's best friend, that they know that if they just throw a pass, that receiver is going to make that catch more times than not. So I definitely feel like they need to have a little bit of an uptick of his offensive production, and I'm pretty sure against Chicago, you'll probably see it, man.
Yep, Taysom Hill, he did pretty good. Taysom Hill too, man. Like, man, that's why I said, man, we got weapons everywhere, man. Like, for real.
Yeah. I mean, that was the frustration about it, Stepper. It wasn't the fact that we felt like this team wasn't going to be good or they were going to be middle of the pack. It was because we seen all this talent that they had offensively and defensively, and we expected more out of the team. And that's why our frustrations come from. That's the reason why we feel like this season has been a disaster. Not the fact that they are not good enough. It's the fact that they have all these weapons that they can utilize, even in the face of injury. Like just look at this, right? So Key Kirkwood, who was known for being a receiver for blocking purposes and goal line situations, he doesn't play yesterday. He's inactive because he hurt. In comes A.T. Perry. Like, you probably have more confidence in A.T. Perry making a play than Key Kirkwood. So they have players even that's sitting on the sidelines that can come in and be productive. If something was to happen to AK, you still have confidence in Jamal Williams and Kendrick Miller to run the football. So when you have all this talent, you want it to be utilized. And when it's not being utilized, you're wondering to yourself, why isn't it? And what can we do to change that? And I'm glad to see the Saints utilizing some of these playmakers in games now.
Yep.
You got anything else, man?
Nah, that's about it, TJ. I'm just happy we got a win, man, to keep us like in a division trying to fight to get this playoff spot, man. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, look, it seems like everything is in front of them. They still control their own destiny, so hopefully they can get it done. But Stepper, thank you very much, man. Appreciate the call.
Thank you, TJ. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem, man. Yeah, shouts out to Stepper, man. Yeah, man. Everybody just wants the Saints to live up to the expectations. The expectation is having a really good, solid team and having a team full of playmakers. And you want to see these guys make plays. Let me see. Tim says Kevin White was a first-round draft pick. There's got to be a lesson there. Yeah, I mean, but I will say this. Kevin White was one of those guys that fell into that Darius Haywood-Bay type category. For those that may not be familiar with Darius Haywood-Bay, he was a wide receiver that had top-end speed, came out of the University of Maryland. And, Al Davis, who was alive at the time, owner of the Raiders, drafted him, right? And people thought that was a big mistake because at that time, you had Michael Crabtree coming out of Texas Tech. He was the top receiver. But Al Davis went with the speed. Now, to the credit of Darius Haywood-Bay, he had a good, solid career. He played for over a decade, but he never really lived up to that top 10 pick moniker. And I think that it was the same thing when it came to Kevin White. Kevin White, everybody got wild with the size, like him being 6'4", 6'5", running at 4'2", borderline 4'3", you know what I'm saying? Like bottom 4'3" speed, and teams fell in love with it. But they didn't really take into account like the overall ability. He had issues like being hurt. And I just find it amazing that he was drafted all those years ago and he never had a receiving touchdown in the NFL. Like, that's insane that you can play that long in the National Football League and can't like catch a touchdown somewhere. But, sometimes, guys come in with a lot of fanfare. They live up to those expectations. And then Kevin White, he's just one of those guys that couldn't live up to it. Darius Haywood-Bay, one of those guys that didn't really live up to it. When it comes to some of these players that I see out here, like Chris Olave, I feel like there is potential there. I don't feel like he falls into that category. But you can. Like, if you don't watch out, if you can't, hold yourself accountable, you can't get your emotions in check, you will end up being like one of these guys. And before I go, I do want to mention Chris Olave. And honestly, I wanted to mention this towards the end of the show, quite frankly, because I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I didn't want to kick off the show talking about Chris Olave and the drop passes and stuff like that. I just feel like at this particular point, the things that have been going on with Chris Olave is mostly considered low-hanging fruit when you're talking about him these days. But I will say this. The issue that's going on with Chris Olave has absolutely nothing to do with his talent. It has everything to do with him psychologically. And I want you to hear me on this, right? If you don't hear nothing that I say here on this podcast, listen to this. The greatest thing in the world is a clean bill of mental health. I'm going to say that again. The cleanest thing is your mental health. That is the most important thing. When you have good mental health, it's amazing. Like your life feels better. Your relationship with others feel better. The confidence within yourself feels better. Anybody knows me knows that I battle with those type of things, right? So that's why sometimes, I step away or some of the things that I'm doing. What's going on with Chris Olave is psychological. Honestly, I don't know what's going on in his, but whatever's going on behind the scenes is translating to the field. Him missing those passes yesterday is more of a mental thing more than his God-given ability. I feel like when you look at Chris Olave, he is trying way too hard. He's trying way too hard to try to impress people. He's trying way too hard to try to get the monkey off his back that has been on there for the last couple of weeks. And I just think that this brother needs to take a deep breath. Now, I will say this. A lot of the things also that what he's going through is the fact that he's never experienced that. If I can think back about, everybody knows I'm a big historian, right? When you think about the stock market crash in 1929, you had a lot of people that had a bunch of money, lost their money in the stock market. They end up jumping off a building, right? Because they couldn't deal with the fact of being poor. They had money their entire life. They had prosperity their entire life, and now all of a sudden you're telling them they don't have anything. What I'm saying is Chris Olave has been told his entire life that he is better than everyone else. He has shown that he is better than every other player that has come his way, right? That's the reason why he was one of the top players coming out of the city of San Diego. That was the reason why he got opportunity to play at a powerhouse like Ohio State. When he got to Ohio State, he was playing amongst guys that were on his level. And those guys went out there every single week and they beat the brakes off most of the teams in the Big Ten. Things were easy. All you had to do was run fast. Justin Fields to give you the football. CJ Stroud to give you the football. And you won a lot, right? You won a lot. You caught a lot of touchdowns. You had a lot of yards. And losses were few and far in between. You get drafted and you come to a team that is, over the last 15, 20 years, have been one of the top teams in the NFC, but they're going through a transition. And with that transition, you're going to have some hardships. What Chris Olave is experiencing for the first time probably in his football life is adversity. And it's consistent, right? It's not so much about like, okay, I'm fast. Everybody's fast. I can catch. Everybody can catch in the National Football League. And you have to figure out how you can separate yourself from the pack. And I just think that he's trying to figure it out. But at this particular point, I feel like he's trying too hard to figure it out. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's the expectations of the Who Dat Nation, NFL prognosticators saying that he's up next and he's the number one guy. And maybe he's feeling the pressure. Like we've heard like different stories about guys feeling the pressure. For example, Christian Wirfs. Christian Wirfs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played right tackle starting off his career. Now he moved to left tackle. He went out and basically said that he had to get therapy because of the anxiety he was experiencing from moving from one side to another, because he understood like the pressures of that. I just feel like when it comes to Chris Olave, I feel like he's feeling the pressure, and it is pretty obvious in his play. He's second guessing himself. He's more focused about making the right decision and just being instinctive playing the game of football. There were 2 plays I just feel like that justify what I'm saying. There was a play where Derek Carr threw him a pass, and I think he called it on the out route, and the cornerback fell down, and he didn't even realize it, right? So he just basically runs out of bounds on his own power. And I think that it probably, like, people were like, man, he's scared of the contact. No, I don't think it's that at all. I think what you're seeing is a guy that is trying desperately to make the right decision. And he's in his own head. I think that drop that he had when Derek Carr threw him a perfect pass that should have been a touchdown, that is a guy that is in his own head. And we're seeing that. And I just think that he just needs to take a deep breath and just enjoy it. Like I mentioned when it came to Rashid Shaheed, how happy he is to be out there and how he plays the game with a childlike enthusiasm. And I just feel like Chris Olave probably loves football and he's passionate about football, and it is his passion. But now it's starting to feel like a job. And we all know that there's a difference between a passion and a job. Like when you're passionate about something, like you love it unconditionally, right? But when that passion starts to become a job, you got to kind of take a step back and just say, man, how in the world can I start having fun again? I just feel like with the scrutiny about his commitment, him quitting on plays, I feel like all of that stuff is starting to mount, on top of him. And I just feel like he's starting to feel the pressure. This guy needs to take a deep breath and start having fun again, and start to have an appreciation for who he is as a player. And also the fact that he gets opportunity to do something that thousands upon thousands of people wish they can do on a weekly basis, which is play the game of football. I don't think anything is wrong with Chris Olave. Personally, as far as his skill set, I think everything that's going on with Chris Olave is mental. And once he gets his mental state correct, I think he's going to be a dangerous wide receiver. But he also has to look at the pressure doesn't necessarily have to be on him. And honestly, I think the Saints need to take a really good look and understand that they have a number one receiver in Olave, but let's not put him on that just yet, right? Because you still have guys out there that can make plays. Michael Thomas can consistently make plays. Shaheed can consistently make plays. It hasn't been seen yet, but A.T. Perry has the ability to make plays. You got Juwan Johnson, who can consistently make plays. Jimmy Graham can be a red zone threat. He has a supporting cast around him. It's not like one of those situations where it was Ricky Williams back in '99, him coming to the New Orleans Saints, and you start to see these different promos about how this guy's going to be the savior of the team. And I know that when you are a first-round draft pick, people look at you and say, you are the future. You are our savior, right? Because the team invested the top pick in you. But it's not one of those situations where the Saints are so terrible they need Chris Olave to be A.J. Brown. You need him to be DK Metcalf. You need him to be Randy Moss in Minnesota back in the day. This guy has a supporting cast. And I honestly feel like the Saints need to reevaluate this thing until this guy gets his head straight. He had 9 targets yesterday, right? He had more targets than any other wide receiver, which tells me that the Saints look at him as a number one receiver. So I will concede, I still feel like Michael Thomas is the number one guy, right? Because he's the most dependable guy, in a tough situation. He's going to come down with the ball more times than not. And yes, he's not the Michael Thomas he once was due to the injuries he sustained to his lower extremities, but he's still more consistent. So I give him the notch with that. And I think the Saints need to look at it too. I think they need to look at the production of Rashid Shaheed and the minimal touches you give him and how he takes those touches and how effective they become. And you also have to look at some of these other players that are around them, like Olave. I mean, not Olave, but Kamara, like Miller, the tight end room. Use these other guys to alleviate some of the pressure off Chris Olave until he can really start to focus and have fun playing football again. Because right now it seems like a guy that was anointed the number one guy, but is cracking under the pressure. I think that he can be that guy, but let's kind of, peel it back just a tad bit. Maybe uptick of Shaheed's touches, maybe an uptick of Taysom touches, maybe an uptick of Juwan Johnson's touches until Chris Olave, starts feeling a little bit better about it, about himself as a wide receiver. So I just think that if you do that, then I feel like around some of the late weeks, 14, 15, if you're in the midst of making that playoff run, I think that, because of him kind of reevaluating things and him taking a deep breath, I feel like he would probably become a little bit more dangerous. And I feel like the confidence in himself will start to come back. But right now, what we're seeing is a guy that is not believing in himself right now. And I know he's been through a lot, with the arrest and everything like that, being called out by teammates. So maybe just try to get a little bit of that pressure off of him, because you have the benefit of doing that because you have so many talented players. Jesus said, stop it, TJ. Put him in an offense like the Eagles of Miami. Watch what he does. Our offense suck. Well, does not suck over the last couple of weeks. They've averaged 300 plus 1 week, 400 last week against Jacksonville, and now 500. No, that's not that's not an offense that sucks, right? Now, you can say an offense that's inconsistent. I will agree with you on that, but the offense doesn't suck. They're inconsistent, but they don't suck. Now, you don't put up those type of numbers offensively if your offense sucks. Like, we wouldn't see this at all, Jeezy. Like, we wouldn't see this offense perform at a high level at all if they sucked, right? The expectations of the offense and what we expected, I can understand. I can agree with you. It's not where we wanted it to be because, what we're seeing is basically a 3-game sample size. But we're seeing that if you put the ball into the hands of the playmakers, they're making plays. But if you want to talk about with Chris Olave and stuff like that, yeah. Do I feel like if he played on a different team, would he probably have larger numbers? Probably. Yeah. I agree with that. But he doesn't play for those teams. He played for the Saints. And also you have to take into account, Jeezy. Look, we can't, if we're going to talk about this, we got to look at it as a whole, right? Why is it that you're watching Michael Thomas make plays and Alvin Kamara make plays and Rashid Shaheed make plays? But when Chris Olave's name is called, we're not seeing him making those plays. We're seeing him drop passes. We're seeing him being uncertain of himself. Like, you can say that, okay, if you put him in a different situation, then it would be better. You're probably right. But in this situation, his number is being called and he's not making a play. So what are we going to do about that? If Jalen Hurts threw him the pass yesterday, he still would have dropped it, right? Derek Carr put the ball on the money. So, he put the ball where the ball needed to be. So no matter if it was Jalen Hurts, no matter if it was Lamar Jackson, no matter if it was Tua Tagovailoa, you got to catch the pass. So no matter what team he was on, it would have been an incomplete pass. So we can't just try to be correct, right? I know we love big up in ourselves. I like to do it from time to time. But we also have to put this thing into perspective as well. It's not so much about being right? We got to look at what we're actually seeing, right? Two things can be true about certain situations. Sometimes I feel like when we arguing, we make compelling arguments with one another. And sometimes we probably can be both right. But one thing is for certain. When you look at Chris Olave, what he is going through, the slump that he's going through has everything to do with him psychologically. It has absolutely nothing to do with him athletically because he has all the tools to be a successful wide receiver in the league. But once again, this offense is on fire right now over the last couple of games, and he hasn't been a part of it. So if we're saying that the offense stinks, this offense has been on fire, and he still hasn't been a part of it. So if you go to Philly, whose offense is on fire, he's what he's going through psychologically, he still wouldn't be as effective. So it doesn't matter because you are getting the ball you're getting more opportunities than any other player. You're getting more targets than any other player, and you're not utilizing those opportunities. I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying? That pass that he dropped, Derek Carr went right back to him and the ball sailed over his head. But you can also, because you should have scored on that last on the play before. So I mean, it's one of those situations where you just want to be oblivious and don't want to take into account the drop that he had. You rather just look at Derek Carr sailing the ball over his head. The ball that sailed over his head shouldn't even existed because he should have scored a touchdown the play before. So I don't know what's going on with Chris Olave, if being on the Miami Dolphins would fix the situation, or being playing for the Eagles would fix the situation. This is a psychological thing. Go back and take a look at the game. Like, I'm not just sitting up here just trying to make excuses or saying that he's not good enough. Go back and watch the game and tell me that you don't see a guy that's in his own head. I mean, just go back and just, like, honestly, just objectively look, like, take away your thought patterns and your viewpoints about what you feel like is wrong with Chris Olave, whether he's on a wrong team or what have you. Just look at this guy play and tell me you don't see a guy that's in his own head. As a guy that has seen, wide receiver play, that has seen how it can affect the guy psychologically, like, trust and believe, like, I can tell. And anybody that's ever played offense at any stage, all right, whether you're a professional or not, you watching this, you know that you have to, like, drown out a lot of things that's going on in your life when you hit that field, because you got to be dialed in. You got to be dialed in. If you're not, then you're going to be making mistakes, and opportunities that present themselves, you're not going to be able to see it because your mind is clouded. But the best thing about it is he's young. He's only 23 years old. And if he can deal with it and go through it, I think he'll be fine. But I think the Saints need to kind of alleviate some of that pressure off of heat up a little bit, like the Shaheeds, like the Taysums. And, let this guy take a back seat. And once he get his mind right, game start to slow down, start to become a little bit more of a student of the game, then you'll be able to get back to him and he can be that dangerous wide receiver you need him to be. Two different football players, Pammy. Shaheed is a baller, in my opinion. He makes the most of every opportunity. Yeah, I mean, but he also has the advantage of playing with house money also. Like, nobody expected Rashid Shaheed to do anything, right? I mean, anything Rashid Shaheed does is just basically what people say in Louisiana is lanyard. This is extra. When it comes to Chris Olave, he has all the expectations and the weight of the world on his shoulders. So if Rashid Shaheed would have dropped that pass in the middle of the field, people probably got upset, but they wouldn't be looking at him like, oh, man, you're supposed to be a number one. When Chris Olave makes a mistake, when Chris Olave drops a pass, it's like the worst thing in the world because he's supposed to be the successor to Michael Thomas. He's supposed to be the number one receiver. So Rashid Shaheed is like one of those people that can kind of just, play the background, and anything that he does can be seen as extra. So because he came in with very little fanfare, low expectations, anything that he does, it basically kind of just amplifies that. It's almost like investing in penny stocks, and that penny stocks just hit, and the next thing you know, you're making money like you invested in Google or something. You know what I'm saying? like, oh man, I invested in these penny stocks, and now, I'm making so much money. It's kind of like that, right? I mean, that's what Rashid Shaheed is. He's just extra. So anything that he does, like, you're going to be excited because he was a kept secret, and it makes the organization look like they one of the small league. Let's see who that TJ Olave uses speed and hit the gas like Rashid Shaheed does. Then his stats would look like Shaheed, but better. Yeah, I agree. But, I just think that the chemistry and, I don't know, the deep ball ability, I don't know. I don't know why it just not connecting with him and Derek Carr. I don't think anything is wrong with either one of the guys. Like, I feel like they're both talented to a point where they can have a connection, because we see that Carr has a connection with Shaheed. We see him having a connection Still needs some work with Michael Thomas. I still feel like those quick slants. He needs to put that ball in front of Mike a little bit more. A couple passes were thrown behind Mike. So I think as time goes on, maybe they can kind of be on the same page with that. But for the most part, they got a little bit of a connection. I'm starting to see a little bit of a connection between him and Alvin. Why isn't it that it's not being effective when it comes to Chris Olave? Like you just got to think like maybe it's just, it's a mental thing at this particular point. It has to be. Thank you for the $5, Hoodie. It says true, but you can also say that Shaheed can lose his spot way easier. Yeah, I mean, but he can't lose his spot much easier. That is true because where he was, he wasn't selected at all. He's undrafted, but he's also just taking advantage of his opportunities. And like I said, even if that wasn't the case, like nobody at the end of the day, if Rashid Shaheed didn't pan out to be what he is, people are like, well, just put somebody else in that spot, right? But I mean, like you say, he's taking advantage of the opportunities, and that's all that you can ask for. And even if the guy starts to taper off a little bit, it's not going to be to a point where people are just wondering where he is. And even if they do feel that way, it's because of how well he has played. I mean, if he would have just came in and just been middle of the pack, giving you some Keith Kirkwood type production, like nobody would have cared. But everybody's excited about it because he's a well-kept secret. But yeah, I mean, yeah, every week he's trying to prove that he deserves to be on the field, and he's having an all-pro season. He's definitely going to be an all-pro if he continues at special teams at more than likely. TJ will still have a $150 million limit. Well, I mean, there's nothing you can really do about that, Jeezy. I mean, the Saints have committed to him. So the best thing that you can do is try to make this thing work until it can't work anymore. Saints is just as good as the Eagles and Chiefs doing everything right. I don't know about that. Like, I don't think that they're better than the Eagles, and I definitely don't feel like they're better than the Chiefs. But on any given Sunday, I feel like they can put a game plan together to beat those teams. And I honestly feel like if they were to play those teams, I don't feel like they would get blown out. I feel like the game would be competitive. I feel like, they still would, be able to stay lock and step with these teams. But I still feel like when it comes to the Eagles, I feel like they're better coached. When it comes to the Chiefs, definitely better coached. But when we're talking about talent across the board, if we're talking about tail of the tape, I definitely agree with you. They have just as much talent as all these other teams. Like if we're doing a Madden simulation, the game would be close, right? Because you're taking analytics and you're putting it on the field, but that's not how it works, right? No matter what you have, it's going to come down to the strategy of your head coaches. If you're going up against one of the best head coaches in the league and Andy Reid, you got to be cerebral, right? You got to be able to counteract what he's doing because he's a guy who has seen it all, done it all, and be able to scheme and adjust accordingly. My question is, when the Saints do go up against some of those elite coaches, can their coaches counteract that? And unfortunately, as we've seen, when a coach has a pedigree of being one of the best, the creme de la creme, Dennis Allen and his coaching staff continuously gets out coached. And, I mean, there's levels to this. Like, just like with players, there's levels to this when it comes to coaching. So I think when it comes down to it, because of the coaching staff, I think that you have to give those other teams the notch over the New Orleans Saints. But that doesn't mean that the New Orleans Saints can't be lock and step and go back and forth with those teams. But I just think that if you play a good enough team, it's going to come down to the X's and O's. And, can your coaching staff be able to coach you in the right direction? And we've seen when Dennis Allen has played Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, and some of these other great coaches that have won Super Bowls, he gets out coached. Just that simple. So, but I still think the Saints can, keep up with those guys. He reminds me of Deontay Hardy. To me, he's probably better than Deontay Hardy as far as his overall skill set. And then also on top of that, the issue that plagued Deontay Hardy was the fact that he was such a small guy. Right? He had the speed, he had the wiggle. And if you watch him, I've watched Deontay Hardy the entire time he's been with Buffalo. He's definitely on. Like, teams are very, very reluctant to actually commit to a guy of smaller stature. And I think that's what the problems that Hardy will continue to face throughout his career, because teams are not going to really just 100% commit to him due to his size. When you have Rashid Shaheed, he has that build of some of the top receivers in the league. You don't have to worry about, him, absorbing any type of punishment, because he can go into some of those tough spots. He can take those tough hits. He can not only do that, but he can do so many different things as well offensively. So I think that, to me, he's better. And I think that both of the guys have talent, but if here's the thing, if Rashid Shaheed wasn't playing for the New Orleans Saints, let's just say, for example, if he was with the Rams, I feel like he would be their top receiver. I couldn't say the same thing with Deontay Hardy. Like, even though Deontay Hardy had some good moments when Jameis Winston was the quarterback, because he was throwing the ball to him down the field, I still don't feel like, as time went on, if the Saints were to rely on Deontay Hardy as their top receiver, I don't feel like he would be able to answer the bell every week. With Rashid Shaheed, I feel like if you put him in the right situation, you develop him, you add more to his plate, he can be that guy. They need to keep working the short and long game with Shaheed. I agree. And also utilizing the middle of the field. I'm going to take a few more, and then we're going to get up out of here, folks. Olave will heat up for that playoff run if the Saints make the playoffs or make a playoff run. We win some, we lose some, but DA and Pete live to coach another day. Pretty much, but we'll see. I still feel like, regardless, I feel like the Saints still are going to go in a different direction offensively. To me, I feel like at this particular point, it is just Pete Carmichael trying to save face. I still feel like, regardless to what happens, rather the Saints continue to put up these points or not, I feel like regardless, it's going to be Pete Carmichael's last year as offensive coordinator. It's probably going to be one of those situations where he, if the Saints continue to go down this road, he saves face enough for people to have a level of understanding and maybe miss him a little bit, I guess. Like, oh, man, like they started off a little slow, but, Pete Carmichael got him in line towards the end of the season. And, I think it's kind of one of those situations, because right now, like, if he leaves, nobody cares. Right. But if the Saints continue to put up points and they continue to do some of the things they did against the Colts, and he steps down, he can save face and maybe move on to another organization, maybe hang out with Sean Payton out there in Denver or move somewhere else, and another team will give him another opportunity. But I feel like, regardless to what the Saints look like offensively, this is Pete Carmichael's last season. Like, seriously. But in the meantime, if you're going to go out in the blaze of glory by having a high-powered offense. But my final thought is very simple. It's a win. It's a start. The Saints still have a lot of work to do. They have they got a very favorable schedule going forward. Just like the Saints can beat those teams can get hot and beat the Saints any given Sunday. The Saints have a home game, but we have seen throughout the last couple of years that playing at home has not been beneficial to the Saints. You got to be able to defend a home field, but the Saints, it seems like they play better on the road than they do at home. But you got to win this game against Chicago, and you definitely got to win this game against Minnesota, because once again, these are two NFC teams. Minnesota, I'm pretty sure, is going to be trying to fight for a playoff spot. You got Chicago. I'm pretty sure they're going to want to fight, regardless to, how things end up with them. I mean, as long as Carolina continues to look the way they have, even though they won on Sunday, Chicago still gets the first pick overall. But they're going to try to continue to fight and try to battle and do whatever they can to try to win. The New Orleans Saints got to go on a hot streak. They got to be able to build on this momentum. They got to be able to utilize these playmakers, open up the playbook, maybe, like I said, add some more to Rashid Shaheed's plate. I don't know. Like, I'm okay with, not having him on punt return so many times, right? I mean, you still got, you got some young players out there that can return a kick. If you're going to put Rashid Shaheed on punt return, that's fine. If you're doing, something different on kickoffs, but try to find ways where you can actually utilize this guy, because he's showing you, if you put the ball into his hands, magic can indeed happen. But thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Please hit the like button on your way out. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Really do appreciate your time. Shouts out to everybody that chimed in, that called in and, and gave their thoughts about the team. as we focus in this week on the Chicago Bears. Will the New Orleans Saints be able to build on this momentum? We'll find out. But in the meantime, we'll be discussing it throughout the week. Be sure to check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Also follow me on Twitter at TJAYJones8. Also support the State of the Saints podcast on HNSN. Download the HNSN app. Every Wednesday is a new episode of the State of the Saints podcast that is available. It comes out 12 noon every Wednesday on HNSN. So make sure that you download the app, support the show, support HNSN. It's a new podcasting network on the rise, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And I'm just asking for your help in order for you to help build the SOTS brand over there. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, night, whenever you're checking out this podcast. And like always, all I got to say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.